Welcome everybody to our shop talk today with Preservica. I'm not going to take a whole lot of time introducing them. They will introduce themselves and get into their presentation. So after their presentation, we'll have a Q&A and then a little bit of our upcoming programming for the rest of the year. And with that, I will turn it over to Preservica.
Great. Thanks, Becky. And Erin, could you share our deck, please? All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Krista Barton. I know I've met many of you. I am one of the enterprise salespeople here at Preservica, and I'll be your host for today's workshop entitled AI in Archiving and Digital Preservation, a Practitioner's Workshop. And co-presenting with me today is my associate, Halley Grogan, which some of you have been worked with in the past. She is our professional services team lead. So this workshop is designed to really help you learn, explore, and actively shape the safe and effective use of human-centric AI in archiving and digital preservation. So today's session will show you how to build practical knowledge in applying AI with human oversight, collaborate and learn from peers in industry best practices. And I apologize, my dog is barking in the background. I don't know if anybody can hear it. Experience AI in action through demonstrations and hands-on sessions, and gain confidence in how and where AI is applied. Next slide, please, Erin. And also we have Erin Strader in the background here, who's going to be running our slides and managing our Mentimeter today. So today's session is proudly guided by Preservica's expert product team with guest speakers from across the industry who will share real-world perspectives and innovations driving the future of digital preservation. So over the course of this session, we'll explore the hands-on application of AI-powered tools from identifying files containing PII to automatically transcribing and captioning video or audio assets in optical character recognition of digitized materials for faster discovery. So next slide. So I'll be shortly sharing with you kind of how we think the role of archivists and records managers in AI world will evolve. And then I'll be handing it over to Halley to provide an update on our approach to innovation through human-centered AI and digital preservation. And she'll be sharing some demo recordings from our senior product manager, Helena. And then we'll end with some next steps and Q&A. So we'll be using Mentimeter to make this an interactive presentation. This includes live polling that lets you engage in real time. So please use this QR code to join in or head to mentimeter.com and type in the code 45007961. So before we get going, we are going to go over kind of a few housekeeping notes. So today's session is being recorded and it will be accessible through the CoSA website, so you can rewatch it and share it with colleagues. And we also encourage you to submit questions at any time and throughout using the Q&A tab in Zoom, and we'll address as many of them as possible during the live Q&A at the end of the session. So next slide, Erin, please. So I'm going to spend a few minutes exploring the role of archivists and records manager in an AI world. And the intention around this workshop is to stimulate the collaboration between you, archivists, and us as a technology provider to help shape the future of digital archives in an AI world. So your participation is very welcome, and please provide your feedback through the survey questions that we'll pose at the end of this session. So here's a question that I'd like to pose to all of us today. How will AI transform the role of archivists and records managers? Next slide, please. And if we look at what the internet says about it, it's very easy to find a lot of information around how AI is going to completely change the archival profession. And a lot of it is doomsaying that the traditional archivist will disappear or the jobs most at risk due to AI includes archivists. But I believe AI will transform rather than eliminate the job of archivists in the same way that industrialization transformed many manual tasks. It's exactly the same thing here with AI. AI is a tool. It's an evolution of the archival profession, not extinction. So it's possible to go online now and find a lot of stuff about AI. But let's see what some of our users say about AI from recent surveys. Many of them provided, they had some good feedback, and these are some of the words that they provided. If you could go to the next slide. So there's some scary words in here: concern, job loss, hallucination, but there's also some positive words here: efficiency, speed, and potential. And all we think about when we all think about AI, we're all concerned what it might mean to our profession, our roles, but we're also excited by the potential here. So when I think about AI, I like to think about the higher level value with respect to how archivists will perform their roles in the future and the way the world will see the role of archivists. And these are some of those words: trust, authenticity, provenance, and transparency. So let's take a look at this high level value that I think is now possible in the AI world. So next slide, Erin. So the key to these opportunities that exist at a higher level value require uniquely human skills. AI can do many, many things, but ultimately the role of the archivist will move to a much higher level value skills. And I really want to touch on a few things here. So first of all, curation, interpretation of content has become much more critical in the AI world. Providing that human oversight and ethical stewardship that becomes much more critical, particularly against bias and hallucinations. And we all know this from watching the news. There's a bias towards hallucinations and creative content that is not genuine. And of course, AI itself can be trained to be very biased in some cases. So this area of oversight and ethical stewardship becomes very important. The bottom point here is archival proficiency. In the future, it will be marrying an archival proficiency along with data sciences and AI that will create these new skills. So the roles of archivists, we believe, will evolve much more towards a hybrid role, where when you're especially in this digital world, where your responsibility is not just the tasks of archiving, but actually marrying of data sciences and AI. And these are the things that we're going to explore in this workshop. So next slide, Erin. So let's look at another way of describing these words. Oh, you can go back one. There you go. So these words, let's look at another way to describe these words that are on the screen. Again, authenticity, transparency, provenance, and trust. It's exactly the sort of things that I think we should be focusing on in the terms of value, the high level value that you'll be providing in the future. So let's look at some of the others are saying about this. So we can see that there are some positive articles appearing, and this one is from an AI journal that just came out a few days ago about AI's role in reshaping digital preservation. And if you look at some of the key things here that it's describing, we've got some highlights here. And if you can move the slide forward, that we can just we can go through some of these really quickly. So it does talk to these key points that the human touch remains essential in an AI world. We are in a new era here, and this is not the elimination of what we're doing, but it's a new evolution of how we're approaching digital archives and digital preservation. And it begins to touch on things like searchability and metadata creation. So next slide, Erin. So I'd like to really finish my part of this presentation um, on what AI assistance means to your archival workflows. So the theme that we've taken on this is that actually this evolution puts you at the center of everything that we do, the human does. Yes, AI is all about getting more done, eliminating time, eliminating repetitive tasks, and moving these to a higher level and higher value areas. And you're going to hear a lot about this throughout this workshop about how the process of appraisal and transfer preservation, enrichment, curation, and providing access to your stakeholders becomes much more important. So I really hope you get a lot from this workshop, and we hope that it's stimulating and exciting for you. So again, please give us some feedback. And now I'd like to hand this over to my colleague Halley, again, who is our professional services team lead here, and she's going to guide you through the practicalities of AI digital preservation. So I'm handing it over to you, Halley.
Thanks, Krista. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here and talk with you today about how we are helping you do more with AI, all while keeping you in control and maintaining human oversight. So let's get started. We can go to the next slide, please. So we have been discussing AI with many of our customers, many of you on the call, and asking them what they're thinking about in terms of AI use. And we have seen some similar themes popping up among these conversations that we're having. So first is control. Users want the ability to control at a quite granular level what AI actions are applied to certain parts of their archived content. And we'll be looking at some examples of that granular control later today. Next, and this one is quite fun to think about, is around how AI could make it easier to create finding aids or even provide more of this idea of a conversational finding aid. So we have been exploring this area as well, and it will be discussed in more depth during our last AI workshop on December 4th. So we'll throw the registration for that event in the chat as well in case you're interested. There was also a lot of feedback around needing to customize which metadata values that were generated by AI conform to certain standards like Library of Congress subject headings. And we're taking this feedback on board as well. And finally, based on questions that we are being asked from a lot of our customers, there are varying degrees in all of our understanding of what types of AI tools are available, what AI is, and how they are trained. So we will be trying to make that clearer through our remaining AI sessions as well. Next slide, please. All of these conversations, all of the feedback, including what we'll hopefully be collecting from you today via Mentimeter, is being used to deliver a lot of AI innovation within Preservica. So we believe having a secure foundation of instantly usable, reliable, and trusted long-term data is essential for the successful adoption of AI services and agents. And those are some of the unique capabilities of our platform. Our active digital preservation platform means that your long-term data is always optimized and ready for AI use, from our flexible metadata for enrichment to powerful security permissions and state-of-the-art webhook APIs. We see that the thoughtful implementation of AI to accelerate certain tasks will benefit all of our users. So let's take a look at some of these features in more detail. So first, using AI image analysis, images within your collection become easily discoverable and with no additional effort from you. To see this in more detail, we're going to watch a demo from our senior product manager, Helena Pilla. I'm not hearing any audio on the video, Aaron.
Sorry?
We didn't hear the audio, so would you mind going back and turning your audio on?
Everyone's getting a preview of the Mentimeter questions that are coming up, so
Sorry. One
be
second.
prepared.
Let me get that shared. So here we are within Preservica's main console, your Explorer, where you can browse what's in your archive using rich views. And here we have a large collection of images and photographs with very nondescript titles, as you can see there. And if we click on one, there's also no metadata. Now, it could take someone significant time to identify all of these images and make them searchable. However, that's what image analysis is here for. So in Preservica, I could go a level up and right click on this folder of images, and this reevaluate policy option becomes available to me. Now, this allows me to check this content against the policy already configured in my system. And one of these policies is my enrichment policy, in which I outlined which AI features I want enabled in my archive and which content should be checked by AI. So I am in full control of what is getting checked and updated here, and I'll show you more on that later. But for now, I'll just confirm that I want these images to be reevaluated against my enrichment policy, and we'll let that process complete. And once done, if I now click on one of the images within this folder, we'll be able to see that it's had its metadata populated. So we have the image summary, a man in a suit standing next to a car, which is what we can see in the image, as well as the objects, places, people identified in the image. So we have some vehicles. There is the photo is taken outdoor. There is a person. It's a man. The photo is black and white. All of this metadata is useful. And then on the right-hand side, we have the confidence levels to which are determine how confident the AI is that these designations are correct.
Great. So with that demo in mind, we have some specific questions for you around AI image analysis. So if you can head over to mentimeter.com, enter that code, or scan the QR code on the screen, you will see our first question, which is what types of images would you want to describe using AI-powered image analysis? Ooh, cursive script. Okay, interesting. Historic events, landscapes. Give it a little bit more time. Enterprise images. Okay, maps. Great. All right. I think we can go to the next question, although for the folks who added landscapes or aerial maps, aerials and maps, maybe you can throw in the chat if you don't mind identifying yourselves. Like, are you thinking like Google Maps type scenario where we're saying we are in this location? I'd like to know more. But if we can go to the next question, it is how large is your backlog of undescribed items or images that you would like to use with the AI image analysis tool? Okay. Give it a little bit more time for folks to weigh in here. We're sort of hitting that middle of the road. Acknowledging that there are some larger collections that we're averaging out. Okay, well, that's great. Okay, so keep that Mentimeter page up if you can. We'll be coming back to those questions, but now we can switch back to our slides. And we're going to be looking at OCR and how it can support some PII identification. So OCR is a familiar tool, but with AI-assisted OCR, users will benefit from text extracted from scanned images and documents to improve search results. The goal here is to make archival content instantly searchable with little effort on your end, while ensuring that critical information remains accessible over time. And if you're already using Preservica's OCR feature, these improvements will give you more control over how OCR is applied within your archive, since it now sits within the global policy space with all of our other AI tool settings. So let's take a look at another demo from Helena, where she goes into more detail about AI-assisted OCR and how it can work in conjunction with our PII identification tools.
So in this example, we're managing a US State Archive, and we've set up a policy to check every ingest into a specific folder for PII. And specifically, that's our Office of the Governor's Records folder. And the record series I'm looking at here is media files. I've finished processing these records, and even though the retention schedules given to me don't warn about PII, and previous accessions of records haven't contained PII, I'm going to run Preservica's PII detection tool as a secondary check. Now, my expectation here is that the search doesn't return anything. There shouldn't be any assets with PII metadata, since the files don't contain PII. But alas, you can see there is one item deep within the folder hierarchy that's been identified. And we can see the confidence score overall for how likely this is to be PII, and we can see all of the items that were found. And better yet, we can view that assets to quickly verify if these items really are PII or not, and whether we're even concerned about sharing them. So really quickly, we are able to take appropriate steps to protect this sensitive information, whether that's now moving the file out of its current location or restricting access to it. So let's look more closely at this flow using another example. And so here we are within another archive within Preservica's main console. And here we have the repository of an imaginary city of Riverton. Now, as an archivist for this city, I received a folder of supposedly redacted emails from the office of one of the former city officials. Let's call her Jane Smith. I need to archive these emails. So what I will do is just drag and drop them into this Explorer view from my desktop, and that will kick off into Preservica. So we'll see that happen shortly. Now we can see that ingest happening in real time. Now, once they are ingested, we can also render them easily within Preservica. And here we can see that one of the emails doesn't look redacted at all. There are phone numbers, addresses, and names, as well as email addresses at the top there. So now let's see if our PII detection tool run on ingest has also picked that up. So we can search within our ingested folder, and we see some emails coming back. Now, if I apply a filter to only bring back emails where PII was found, and I'll use the likelihood, which is a score from 0 to 100% of how confident the AI is that what it's found in a particular asset is actually PII. So I'll go for that higher certainty level there. And that now brings us back a smaller subset of emails. I can then click on one to check and validate if what has been found really is PII that hasn't been redacted. So this is the same email that we were previewing earlier. And if we scroll down to the PII detection section, we can see that Preservica has found 2 email addresses. They're both official, so not really a problem. And for each item, we also have this offset field, which tells us how many characters into the actual asset those values appear, so we can easily reference it visually on the asset as well. Now, we also have some names, and one of these may not be a government official. They're not part of the communication, so that's slightly concerning. There is also an address and a phone number. So given that there is PII in this asset that we probably can't expose publicly, we can now take the appropriate action. We can apply a retention policy to this asset to hold it for at least 25 years and then reassess for PII again. And if we go back, we can also further restrict access to it by applying a restricted security tag.
Okay. So back to Mentimeter again to get a view of how useful this tool might be to you. So first question, which of these is your biggest challenge currently? So you can choose from finding PII in born digital content, finding PII in digitized content, extracting text from digitized or imaged content to make it searchable via OCR, or none of these, I'm just here to learn, which, welcome. Okay, here they come. Interesting that we're sort of sitting around. Okay, there we go. Somebody's looking for PII and digitized content now. I was surprised to see that one low there for a little bit. Great. I would say that we can head to the next question, which is, are you already using a PII detection tool? No. Okay. If you are saying yes, we'd love to hear what tool you're using in the chat. We can definitely see that the majority of folks on the call are not currently using a PII detection tool. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again for participating, and I think we can head back to our slides. So next, what I wanted to talk about was AV transcription and captioning. So this feature enhances discoverability and citizen engagement. It ensures that audio and video content is accessible while supporting ADA and WCAG requirements. And it allows for easy navigation through recordings with a time-stamped transcript. So let's hop over to Helena's demo to learn more.
So here we are viewing the discovery portal of a county archive, and specifically we are seeing one of the many videos that's published on this portal, and it's the recording of a town hall meeting. Now on the right-hand side, we can see that there is very limited metadata, which doesn't make this video very findable through search, and there are also no captions or transcripts available with the video, so it's also not meeting WCAG accessibility requirements. Now we're going to flip to the back office in Preservica, where we can access all of the content in our archive, including what's not available on the Discovery portal. And I will show you how we can quickly enrich that town hall meeting video. Now we already have an enrichment policy set up. This dictates which AI features are enabled for our archive and which content they should or shouldn't apply to. You can see that we already have image analysis turned on, so photographs that are made public on our Discovery portal automatically get described with metadata. And we are also protecting legal documents from having any AI applied to them. So let's go in and edit this policy to also enrich our AV assets. So this policy is set to apply on ingest, but crucially, we can apply it to content that is already ingested, like the video that you saw on our portal. We'll see that in a few minutes. So we'll leave it on just for now and move on to the next step where we can add a profile for transcription and captioning. And this will generate transcripts for audio and video assets, and it will also generate captions for video assets. The last step is to map this profile to the content that we want to apply it to. We want to make sure that all of our public videos on the Discovery portal are accessible and findable. So we will map this profile to all content with the public security tag. And Preservica will automatically only run this action on AV content that has that security tag. So the final step is to review our policy, and then we can update it. Now that's done, we can locate the top level folder or folders where we know we have AV content. And when we right click on that folder, there is the reevaluate policy option. This allows us to apply AI actions on content that is already ingested in Preservica. So I'll select to evaluate this folder against my enrichment policy, which I've just updated, and Preservica will immediately start the process. Now you can monitor the progress of this process within the process monitor tool in Preservica, but I will save you having to do that now. So we'll jump to the process being completed. When we flip back to the portal and look at the same video from the beginning, you can now see that captions are automatically playing. What's happened is that Preservica used an AI tool to generate captions, and it inserted them into the asset itself as another content object. So they are automatically available. There is also the transcript showing underneath the video. And if it's generated in multiple languages, we can easily flip between them in that top right-hand corner. The transcript itself is searchable, so we can jump to a particular keyword or timestamp in the video. And finally, because Preservica adds the transcript and the captions to the record itself, their content becomes part of the record's full text index, meaning that our patrons or portal users can now find this recording of a town hall meeting by searching any keywords within its transcript or captions. So there is less pressure on us to have to add to this limited metadata to ensure that this content is discoverable. And since you can generate transcripts on ingest into Preservica or on demand, you're really well positioned to be able to respond to any urgent requests from other departments or from legal cases where you might need to provide transcripts for legal defense.
Great. So next, we're going to be looking at AI-assisted metadata quality control. So here, we're talking about how we can quickly clean up metadata and resolve inconsistencies to make your content more discoverable. So this is time-consuming work to do outside or on your own, and Preservica's cluster editing feature brings new tools directly into Preservica. So let's take a look and learn more.
So here we have a university archive, and one of our top level folders contains a range of special collections, some that are already available in our public digital archive, and some we've yet to share because we still need to clean up their metadata. So I want to show you how you'll be able to do that with Preservica. When we right-click on this folder with our collections, there is the cluster analysis option. And this is what will allow us to check metadata values within these collections and identify where we can standardize those values to make content more discoverable. So once selected, we can choose the specific fields that we want to evaluate. Now, cluster analysis is ideal for fields like subject and genre, which commonly have inconsistencies and deviations from a certain standard. So that's what we'll select in this first demo. We then get some information back about how many folders and assets will be checked. This can give us a sense of how quickly this process might be completed. And once the process is started, we can see a confirmation message as well. When we go into the metadata quality control page, we can see that our cluster analysis is in progress, and we can also see when it's ready for review. We can see that 12 clusters in total of metadata values were identified. And we can now evaluate the clusters for each field separately. So let's start with genre. There's the first cluster with correspondence, letters. We can see all of the metadata values, apologies, all of the metadata values that were evaluated, as well as the confidence score of how confident the AI is that this really is a cluster of related values. And finally, we have a suggested canonical value that's generated by AI based on our cluster. So for this first cluster, I'm happy with the generated value, so I will accept that. And we can see that that will change 16 assets. So that's automatically gone through. And notice that the archivist is in full control here. So the cluster analysis is there to help and generate suggestions, but human oversight is still key to ensure long-term trust and provenance. You always retain the ability to accept, reject, or change these AI-generated values, and nothing happens without that decision from you. So we still have 3 clusters left. Looking at that second cluster, we can see it's grouping some values that actually we might prefer to keep separate because it makes finding content more easy. So in this case, I'm going to leave these values as they are, and I will reject that suggested cluster. Now, obviously, I could rerun this analysis in the future if I change my mind and want to change them. Now we have 2 clusters remaining, one about lectures, which I'll also accept as these are related terms that I want to consolidate. And finally, there is also some inconsistencies around manuscripts that are affecting 54 of my assets. So I'll accept that as well. And now we can see our updated values have been applied, and the cluster that we rejected is not appearing here. It was not changed. So let's go back and evaluate our subject clusters. So there's a few more clusters here. Our first cluster is catching various typos and inconsistencies to do with modern art, including a schema markup there as well. We also have a cluster of map-related values. We have a COVID-19 cluster, which is different from our COVID-19 oral histories cluster. And if we look towards the bottom at the clusters with lower confidence scores, we also have a rural communities and rural areas cluster. And lower confidence there possibly because it's only 2 values. Now, I actually want rural areas to be the canonical value here. So I'm just going to go in and override the AI suggestion with my own and update our values to that. As far as other clusters go, I am mostly happy with the values there. So we can just go ahead and accept them all at once so that we don't have to update individual values. And again, we get a nice confirmation when they are all updated.
Okay, great. So now back to Mentimeter for our last set of questions. So first is going to be how much AV content do you currently have in your backlog that has no captions or transcripts? Okay. Unsurprising to see that majority of this content, 500 plus hours, 100 plus hours, is going to be without captions or transcripts. See if anybody else is coming in. Okay. Next question is how long, so we're thinking duration here, are your AV assets usually? Something we need to consider as we build a tool or as we perfect the tool that we're using to create or caption these transcripts is how long are we expecting it to run for one audio asset or video asset versus another. So 1 to 2 hours, less than an hour. Okay, nobody's got like 6+ hour long opus that they want to transcribe. Some of those board meetings can go on for a pretty long time. Okay, well, we'll take that. A few folks jumping in. And then last question is going to be, what controlled vocabularies are you currently using? So if possible, instead of throwing in an LCSH there, you can Library of Congress subject headings. Like, I know we all love our abbreviations, but just to make sure that we're sort of looking at the appropriate controlled vocabulary, that would be useful. Okay, get Dublin Core. Okay. Costume Core, very cool. Thank you. And yes, we all love our local controlled vocabularies. Yep, LCSH, there we are. All right. Okay, well, I think there are more. Okay, good. Library of Congress, local. Yeah, local. Man. Okay, well, if anybody wants to add any more, we're still capturing the Mentimeter, even if we're not sharing it on the screen. So thank you everybody for participating, and sharing your feedback via the Mentimeter platform. I think we can head back to our last couple of slides and make sure that we have some time for Q&A. So, as I mentioned, to wrap up quickly, I just wanted to share that currently within the Preservica product, we have delivered PII, OCR, and the image analysis AI feature. And we're working now on expanding access to these tools across all of our editions, as well as adding AV transcription and metadata quality control. And as we look towards the new year, AI-powered search is a big focus for our team. But as I hope we've shown you today, we're continuously gathering more customer use cases to see how we could leverage AI to support your work. So please continue to share. And with that, I'll hand it back to Krista.
Thanks, Halley. Could you go to the last slide, Erin, please? So before we get to the QA, we just want to kind of review some of your next steps if you'd like to learn more. There's a lot of content on our website, and we are adding more and more, every week. So check into our website, the area under AI-powered archiving. We've put AI learning modules in our Academy, Preservica Academy. So now you can go in and take some training, especially on the modules that we have released. And we have a number of customer stories being released. So take a look on our website under customer stories. And finally, if you're interested in joining our beta program, you just please note that in the post-workshop survey that will be sent out. We are always looking for as many participants as we could get. We do get a lot of really valuable feedback from our clients that participate in the beta program. So please consider it. So now let's get to some questions. So again, just please put them in the chat. Let's see. I'm going to moderate these. So Bill Branch has a question to you, Halley. How does this work with FOIA requests and redacting transcripts?
Yeah, I think I saw your question come in, Bill, when we were talking about the OCR and PII tool. So correct me if I'm wrong in that assumption, but the OCR and PII tool working together would help you identify that PII content that you would then have the ability to redact prior to sharing with public, or, as a way to ensure that when you are responding to FOIA requests, you're really capturing and searching and finding all relevant material based on that FOIA request. That's sort of, how I would approach using those tools. They're also later on, sort of after you asked your question, we were looking at the AV transcription. And in that scenario, we have heard some feedback that, it's great for the AI tool to generate a transcript as a starting point, but then how do we need to edit it potentially at a later date if names are misspelled? Or I think it's a great example to pull in your FOIA request or redaction question to that conversation as well, to say, yes, now that I see this transcript, I know that we need to redact the name of, this state official's address or their personal blah, blah, blah. So that would be another way that AI is going to help identify so that you can then take next steps in a way that you would not have been able to before.
Great. So we have the next question from Mary. Mary. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. She asks, do rules about PII change from time to time? I would say they can, that you really need to consult your local regulations and your local policies about PII, but also know that within our product, if they do change, if your statewide or your local policies and rules do change, you have the ability you can customize it and filter and build your own filters for the exact PII that you are looking for within all of your records. So it is very flexible, and it is meant that you can change it over time. And I don't know if you have anything you want to add there, Halley.
Yeah, I was going to just mention that I feel like this is a question for the larger group here today. We heard earlier that we have folks here from Ohio, folks here from Texas. When I was working the state archives in Texas, I was looking at the Texas Public Information Act as being the sort of be-all standards for any PII. I'm not sure how that compares to our colleagues who are in Ohio. So that's, definitely a good place to start, is to share those resources amongst yourselves. And as you said, Krista, look at sort of start locally first.
Great. And Halley, could you tell us, what some of these tools, what software they're based on? What are some of these tools that we've been sharing with you today?
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about PII. We can start there. So the PII tool that we use, and it runs within Preservica, is the Microsoft Presidio tool. So you can search Microsoft Presidio and sort of see all of the types of PII that they're identifying. So for example, sort of as you mentioned, Krista, we have the ability to customize your working here in the US. You don't need to identify UK account numbers potentially, or and so that Presidio tool has the sort of overview of what type of information it will be set up to find within your Preservica system. With OCR, we are using a tool called Tesseract, and that also sort of sits and runs within Preservica. And if you've used our sort of OCR in our classic Preservica, it is the same tool that we've run before, but now we're able to apply it in a really much more targeted way. So you're not having to run it against every type of content, that you ingest in your system. And then finally, for the the image analysis tool is Azure Vision. And that is slightly different in the sense that it doesn't actually sit within your Preservica instance. It would be within your Azure cloud, and you set up an account with Azure Vision, and those credentials are then entered into the Preservica global policy AI setting page, where you're basically allowing the Preservica tool to use your credentials to call out to that Azure tool. So something to consider when you talk sort of internally and think through these ideas of what AI tools are we allowed to use, what are they allowed to do with our content. All of those tools like the PII and the OCR tool, the content is staying within your Preservica system. With the Azure AI, you're setting up that account with them, so you're able to control what they can and can't do with your content sort of directly with them as a service, as opposed to Preservica making any of those decisions. So
Great. So any final questions? No? Halley, I just have personally one more question for you is, during your time at T-Slack, I know you and I have talked about kind of some of your challenges, but what excites you? What do you think, what Preservica is doing with AI? What do you think would have been the most valuable in kind of your day-to-day jobs, and also kind of what you are hearing and seeing from all of your clients here at Preservica? What do you think is going to be kind of the biggest differentiator for helping people improve their efficiency?
yeah, so personally, I like the metadata quality control piece, because when I was photograph archivist at T-Slack, I was working on migrating from a legacy system that described all of our photograph collections into Preservica. And it wasn't until we had a lot of our metadata in Preservica that we realized how inconsistently it had been applied. One photograph over here is described black and white photographs versus another photograph over here is black and white photography, and it just sort of cuts down some of that faceting and filtering and grouping like content together that you could do. So I had to do a lot of that work outside of the system and then sort of update it after the fact. So the idea that I could have done all of that sort of cluster editing within Preservica directly and had all of those metadata changes then audited by the system itself would have been really, really useful. But also, like, metadata is a particular interest of mine. When I look at the image analysis tool, I didn't work with video or AV content as much, so I will leave it to my former AV colleagues there to speak on that score. But I did a lot of PII as well, and so the ability to just do, like, I would always do my check, but then the ability to have a tool to run either initially to flag like really obvious things or to really catch any potential misses at the end is also something that would have just been a reassurance to me on that front. So, yeah.
Great. All right, everyone. So I just put in the chat, if you guys have any additional questions, you can also email me directly and I will get you answers. But thanks everybody for your time today. We really appreciate it. We hope that this has been helpful and, really showcased what we're doing now and where we're going with this. And we all just want to stress again is that the human-centered nature of our approach to AI is the goal is just to make things more efficient, not replace, and really enrich what you're doing. So again, thank you very much for your time, and I'm going to pass it over to Becky.
Hi, thank you, Krista, Halley, and Aaron. We just have a couple final closing slides here, just our typical what's coming up next programming. So as you can see, we do have an Archivists Who Code discussion happening in about 5 minutes. So if you're planning on jumping over to that, that is coming up very, very quickly. We have our next Chatting with Colleagues session on December 10th at 3:30 Eastern, and that will be all about storytelling, following up on our session at the annual meeting, and that is open for registration right now. And we have a Shop Talk with APPX coming up yet this month on the 18th. Another look at uses of AI, so catch that. And then coming up at the first starting of the year is our annual What's on Tap for CoSA webinar. And just our regular website, Facebook, YouTube, where you can connect and find resources. That is all I have. So if there are any last final questions, pop them into chat. And thank you again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.